When Heavy D passed away in 2011, the world lost not just a musician, but a figure who would quietly influence the sound and spirit of an entire generation. From the early 1980s onward, Heavy D, born Dwight Arrington Myers, had carved a unique space in hip-hop as both a talented rapper and a deeply charismatic performer. While many fans remember him for his catchy hits, such as Now That We Found Love and Somebody For Me, his contributions went far beyond music charts. He was a bridge between hip-hop culture and Hollywood, helping shape the way black entertainers were seen on television and in music. Heavy D's charm and professionalism made him someone that other artists and actors gravitated toward, seeking his guidance, mentorship, and advice. Over the years, he became known for being a steady, encouraging presence behind the scenes, someone who quietly helped younger artists and actors navigate the often unpredictable and harsh entertainment industry. In addition to his work as a performer, he acted as a cultural mentor, helping set the tone for shows like Living Single, which defined a generation of viewers by portraying young, professional black men and women navigating life, love, and friendship in New York City. Heavy D's personality was magnetic. He was confident yet approachable, stylish but humble. His presence on television, especially in guest appearances on Living Single, brought authenticity to the show and a connection that could not be scripted. Audiences immediately noticed his energy and charisma, which blended seamlessly with the cast dynamic. Beyond the screen, Heavy D had a reputation for being kind, generous, and down-to-earth. Those who worked with him often praised his professionalism and the way he made others feel valued. He was deeply invested in his family and community, donating to educational programs and supporting charitable causes without seeking attention or recognition. Heavy D's personal life, however, was not without its struggles. Throughout his career, he faced challenges related to maintaining his health, managing the pressures of fame, and balancing his professional responsibilities with personal relationships. He openly embraced his size and turned it into a source of confidence rather than shame, earning him the nickname the Overweight Lover. Despite the pressures and constant attention, he remained grounded, seeking solace in quiet moments at home and finding spiritual guidance later in life. Heavy D's passing at the age of 44 from a pulmonary embolism shocked fans and the entertainment world alike. His funeral, held in his hometown of Mount Vernon, New York, brought together some of the biggest names in music, including Jay-Z, Diddy, Will Smith, Mary J. Blige, and Queen Latifah, who paid heartfelt tributes to his life and influence. Yet, despite the profound impact he had on the Living Single cast, most of them were noticeably absent. Their absence sparked questions and speculation, leaving fans wondering why those who worked closely with him and shared the experience of creating a groundbreaking television show did not attend. To understand this, it is important to explore both Heavy D's influence on the show and the complex, behind-the-scenes dynamics of the cast and production. When Living Single first aired in 1993, it immediately stood out as a television show that celebrated young black professionals navigating life, love, and friendship in New York City. The show was groundbreaking in its portrayal of independent, ambitious characters who were unapologetically themselves. Heavy D's influence on the show was both direct and subtle. As a guest star, he brought authenticity and charisma that matched the show's energy perfectly. More than just a performer, he served as a bridge between hip-hop culture and Hollywood, giving the cast insight into the music industry and entertainment business. His presence on set added a confidence and professionalism that encouraged the actors to elevate their performances. The cast of Living Single, including Queen Latifah, Kim Fields, Terrence Carson, Kim Cole, Eric Alexander, and John Henton, respected Heavy D not only for his talent, but also for his mentorship. He took time to advise them, offer encouragement, and ensure they understood the importance of representation in media. Heavy D believed that seeing black faces in positions of influence on television was just as revolutionary as hearing them on the radio. He quietly guided the cast on how to balance humor with authenticity, helping them deliver performances that were relatable, funny, and culturally relevant. Beyond the set, he was generous with his time, attending events, supporting educational causes, and mentoring young artists who would later become household names. Heavy D's influence extended to shaping the atmosphere of the show. The energy he brought on camera helped create chemistry between characters, particularly in moments that required improvisation or genuine emotion. His ability to mix street-smart confidence with warmth made him relatable and allowed him to connect deeply with both cast members and audiences. This presence made it clear that he cared about the success of Living Single not just as a show, but as a cultural movement. However, behind the scenes, the environment of the show was not without its challenges. Like many long-running productions, Living Single faced creative differences, scheduling pressures, and inevitable tensions that come from working closely with a team over multiple seasons. While the cast shared many fond memories, some actors, like Terrence Carson and Kim Fields, began to feel the strain of these pressures as the series progressed. Heavy D, ever the supportive colleague, often stepped in to offer guidance or reassurance during stressful moments, helping to stabilize dynamics on set. His encouragement helped the cast navigate difficult scenes, maintain professional standards, and keep the heart of the show intact. By the late 1990s, as the show approached its conclusion, the impact of Heavy D's presence was still evident. He had not only contributed memorable guest appearances, but had also shaped the culture and attitude of the cast, instilling values of confidence, professionalism, and mutual support. For many cast members, his influence went beyond the set. It was a reminder of the importance of mentorship, representation, and the impact of kindness in an industry often marked by competition and ego. Yet, despite the strong connections forged over years of collaboration, the dynamics of Hollywood and personal journeys meant that not all cast members maintained close ties. By the time of Heavy D's passing in 2011, many had moved on to other careers, personal projects, or different cities, creating both physical and emotional distance. Understanding this context helps explain why some cast members were absent from his funeral. Their absence was not necessarily a reflection of disrespect or lack of care, but rather a result of the complicated realities of long-term professional relationships, personal growth, and the natural drift that occurs when people pursue different paths in life. Terrence Carson, who portrayed Kyle Barker on Living Single, was one of the key pillars of the show's early success. His character, the sharp-witted and stylish stockbroker, quickly became a fan favorite, thanks to his chemistry with Eric Alexander's Maxine Shaw and his playful, flirtatious interactions with other characters. On screen, Kyle's mix of charm, humor, and occasional vulnerability added a layer of depth to the ensemble, making the show feel alive and dynamic. Off-screen, Carson was equally committed to his craft. He invested significant energy into developing Kyle's personality and ensuring that the character was both entertaining and authentic. However, the behind-the-scenes reality of a long-running television show can be complicated, and Carson's experience was no exception. As Living Single progressed into its later seasons, he began to notice changes in the show's creative direction. Decisions about storylines, character focus, and narrative priorities often left him feeling marginalized. In particular, Carson became concerned that the male characters, including his own, were being sidelined in ways that undermined the balance and authenticity that had made the show unique. He felt strongly that Living Single had always been about portraying ambitious, professional black men and women navigating life together, and he worried that certain choices were diluting that vision. Tensions escalated, culminating in Carson being let go from the show. His departure was far from voluntary and left him feeling frustrated, isolated, and hurt. For someone who had poured years of dedication into the project, it was a deeply personal and emotional experience. He had invested not only professionally but also emotionally in the ensemble, and being removed disrupted both his career trajectory and his connection to the cast. When the show ended, many of the relationships between cast members had begun to shift as a result of these tensions. Some friendships remained strong, but others quietly drifted apart. Carson, in particular, chose to distance himself from Hollywood circles and focus on music, theater, and personal projects. This decision allowed him to reclaim agency over his career, but also meant stepping back from public events, reunions, and high-profile industry functions. By the time Heavy D passed away in 2011, Carson was leading a quieter life, removed from the day-to-day drama and camaraderie of Living Single. His absence from Heavy D's funeral, therefore, was not an indication of disrespect or a lack of grief. On the contrary, those who understood Carson's journey recognized that attending such an emotionally charged event could have reopened old wounds tied to his departure from the show. Grief is intensely personal, and Carson likely chose to honor Heavy D privately, processing his emotions away from the cameras and media attention. This decision reflects a broader reality in the entertainment industry. Professional success does not always equate to personal closeness, and years of shared work do not guarantee ongoing attendance at life events. For Carson, navigating the aftermath of his departure and managing his personal and professional life required distance. His absence from the funeral, though noticeable to fans, underscores the complexity of relationships in Hollywood, where public perception often oversimplifies private realities. Carson's story highlights the often unseen challenges actors face, from creative conflicts to career setbacks, and how these experiences shape decisions about attending public events, even when a beloved colleague passes away. Heavy D had been an influential presence in Carson's life, both professionally and personally, but Carson's path had diverged, and he grieved in his own way. Understanding this context provides insight into why the Living Single cast, despite their shared history and Heavy D's influence, were not all present to pay tribute at the funeral. It was a mixture of past tensions, personal distance, and individual coping mechanisms that shaped the decisions each actor made in response to the tragedy, G establishing her own production company. Balancing these personal and professional commitments placed her under intense pressure. The environment on set also evolved as the show progressed. Early seasons have felt like a family atmosphere, with camaraderie, laughter, and improvisation shaping both the work and the experience. By the later seasons, however, Kim noticed shifts in the creative direction, scheduling pressures, and a level of industry politics that created stress and diminished the nurturing feel the cast had initially enjoyed. For Kim, who had always been passionate about her craft, this gradual change affected her emotionally. She described the experience as draining, with the very work that once inspired her now felt heavy and burdensome. This tension, combined with her personal challenges, prompted her to step back before the series finale. While her departure surprised fans of the time, most assumed it was a matter of scheduling or creative choice by the producers. In reality, it was a carefully considered act of self-preservation. Over the years, Kim maintained a degree of distance from her Living Single co-stars and largely avoided reunions, interviews, or public retrospectives about the show. Her absence from these events was not an indication of disconnection, but rather a commitment to personal growth and healing. Stepping away allowed her to focus on self-discovery, resilience, and redefining her identity beyond the boundaries of the show and fame. By the 2020s, Kim had reinvented herself as a motivational speaker and author, dedicating her time to guiding others on issues of self-worth, mental health, and personal empowerment. Her work emphasized the importance of boundaries, personal space, and emotional health, principles that influence her decision-making during times of grief and public attention. Therefore, when Heavy D passed away in 2011, Kim's absence from the funeral was consistent with the pattern of her carefully maintained distance from Hollywood events. It was not out of disrespect or indifference, but rather a reflection of her need to navigate grief privately while continuing her personal journey. Kim's story underscores the complex realities of life in the entertainment industry, where public expectation often overlooks the private struggles, emotional needs, and life circumstances that influence choices. Her dedication to personal growth, maintaining professional integrity, and managing emotional health demonstrates the ways in which actors sometimes must separate from past environments to maintain balance. In Kim Field's case, honoring Heavy D likely happened in private, away from cameras and media scrutiny, in line with her approach to life after living single. Her journey reminds us that absence at public events does not necessarily reflect the depth of respect or grief one feels, but rather the nuanced realities of life, career, and emotional boundaries. Kim Cole, who portrayed Sinclair James Jones on Living Single, brought a unique warmth and joy to the show. Her character, the lovable, quirky receptionist at Flavor magazine, radiated optimism, innocence, and sincerity, making her instantly endearing to audiences. Sinclair's storylines, including her romance with Overton Wakefield Jones, played by John Henton, offer heart and humor, giving the show emotional depth beyond its comedic surface. Cole's performance was a perfect balance of childlike charm and relatable human emotion, which made her an essential part of the ensemble. Yet, like many actors transitioning out of a long-running series, her post-Living Single experience was far from straightforward. After the show ended in 1998, she faced a sudden slowdown in professional opportunities. The transition from being part of a high-profile ensemble to navigating a quieter career landscape proved challenging. Roles became less frequent, and the type of visibility and acclaim she had enjoyed on television was harder to maintain. This shift took an emotional toll, as it required her to redefine her identity outside of the beloved character she had portrayed for years. For Kim, the most difficult part of this period was not financial, but emotional. The abrupt change in recognition, combined with the pressures of sustaining a career in an industry that often prioritizes youth and novelty, forced her to confront feelings of inadequacy and invisibility. She later spoke candidly about this time, describing it as a period of self-reflection and reinvention. To cope, she focused on personal development, exploring opportunities that align with her interests and values, rather than chasing the fleeting visibility that Hollywood often demanded. Her journey of resilience led her to reinvent herself as a motivational speaker, author, and advocate for mental health and self-worth. Using her platform, she began speaking openly about overcoming setbacks, embracing self-love, and navigating life transitions with grace. This work became a central focus, allowing her to help others while also establishing a sense of fulfillment outside of acting. By the time Heavy D passed away in 2011, Kim Ko had already established a life that was intentionally private, centered around personal growth and giving back through mentorship and motivational work. Her absence from the funeral reflected a conscious choice to manage grief and tribute in her own way, consistent with her approach to life after living single. It is important to recognize that absence in public settings does not equate to a lack of respect or affection. For Kim Ko, processing Heavy D's passing privately aligned with the quiet and intentional life she had built in the years following the show. Her story illustrates the challenges faced by performers who, after experiencing fame, must navigate reinvention, personal healing, and evolving priorities. The bonds formed on set, while powerful, often coexist with personal decisions and life paths that diverge after a show concludes. Kim's decision to step back, focus on her personal life, and honor her emotions privately underscores the complexities behind public absence. It highlights the need for compassion and understanding when interpreting why beloved actors may not appear at memorials or reunions, even for figures as influential and respected as Heavy D. Her experience demonstrates that career setbacks, life transitions, and a pursuit of emotional well-being can shape how individuals navigate public tragedies. Ultimately, Kim Ko's journey reflects a balance between personal growth and continued reverence for the people who influence her life, offering a nuanced perspective on the reasons for her absence from Heavy D's funeral and the broader dynamics of the living single cast over time. Eric Alexander, who brought the fierce and intelligent Maxine Shaw to life on Living Single, was arguably the fire at the center of the show. Maxine's character was fearless, sharp-tongued, and unapologetically ambitious, combining humor, intellect, and a feminist perspective that made her stand out in the 1990s sitcom landscape. On screen, she was the anchor for the ensemble cast, balancing the humor of her co-stars with wit and strong presence. Off-screen, Erica carried that same passion and determination, advocating for meaningful storytelling and authentic representation of Black women on television. She often spoke candidly about how groundbreaking Living Single was, not just for its comedic value, but for providing visibility to a professional Black ensemble in an era where opportunities and representation were limited. Erica's commitment to authenticity extended beyond performance. She pushed for narratives that were nuanced, realistic, and empowering. Over the years, she became a vocal supporter of Black-led media, challenging industry norms and highlighting inequities in how shows with predominantly Black casts were marketed and syndicated compared to their white counterparts. This advocacy sometimes created distance between her and other industry figures, not because of personal animosity, but because of her dedication to principles over popularity. Erica also continued her professional journey in ways that aligned with her values. She co-hosted the Reliving Single podcast with Kim Ko, revisiting the experiences of the cast while openly addressing the challenges and successes they face behind the scenes. Through this platform, Erica provided fans and new audiences with context about the creative and systemic forces that shaped the show, offering a candid perspective that few television retrospectives deliver. Despite her public engagement in these projects, Erica often maintained personal boundaries, particularly regarding sensitive matters such as grief. When Heavy D passed away in 2011, Erica was notably absent from the funeral, and she did not issue a public statement at the time. While the reasons are not fully documented, it is consistent with her pattern of managing personal emotions privately. Erica had already moved into a phase of life where she selectively chose how to engage with public events and memories tied to living single. This approach allowed her to honor relationships and experiences on her own terms without feeling pressured by public expectations. Her absence should not be interpreted as a lack of respect for Heavy D, whose influence and mentorship she acknowledged publicly on multiple occasions. Instead, it reflects a conscious decision to grieve and remember privately, away from the scrutiny and spectacle of the media. Erica's experience highlights an important reality in entertainment. Public appearances and tributes are not the only measure of loyalty, respect, or affection. Many individuals process loss internally, drawing on personal reflection, private rituals, and intimate support networks rather than public ceremonies. In Erica's case, her absence aligns with her lifelong dedication to authenticity and autonomy, values she upheld both in her professional life and personal choices. It also underscores how complicated emotions and history with colleagues can shape responses to tragedy. Heavy D had been a meaningful figure in her life and career, but the decision not to attend his funeral publicly allowed Erica to reconcile grief, respect, and personal boundaries on her own terms. Her story, like those of Carson Kim Field and Kim Cole, reminds us that the narrative of the living single cast's absence is not about neglect or ingratitude, but about a combination of past tensions, life transitions, and individual coping strategies that often go unseen by the public eye. It's a powerful reminder that private mourning can coexist with deep respect, admiration, and love for someone whose influence shaped not only careers but also lives. John Henton, who played Overton Wakefield Jones on Living Single, was a calm, warm presence that balanced the show's fast-paced humor and assertive personalities. Overton's character, a lovable and easygoing building superintendent, brought heart and relatability to the series. His gentle demeanor, combined with comedic timing, allowed him to stand out without overshadowing the ensemble, creating one of television's most memorable and endearing characters of the 1990s. For John, Living Single was a turning point in his career. Before joining the cast, he had been building his reputation on the stand-up comedy circuit, known for his observational humor, approachable style, and ability to connect with audiences. His appearance on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno showcased his talent and opened doors that ultimately led to his casting as Overton. The role was not just a professional milestone. It was an opportunity to be part of a culturally significant show that celebrated Black life, friendship, and professional ambition in a way that few sitcoms had done before. However, John's journey after Living Single was complicated by unforeseen personal challenges. In 2000, he experienced a near-fatal car accident that left him with severe facial injuries and multiple fractures. The recovery process was long, difficult, and physically and emotionally demanding. Reconstructive surgery and rehabilitation required patience, resilience, and a level of determination that tested his character. While John eventually returned to public life and stand-up comedy, his priorities shifted. He began to value privacy and personal well-being over public visibility. His retreat from Hollywood events and limited media appearances reflected both the impact of his accident and his natural inclination toward a quieter life. Over the years, he continued to work steadily in comedy and television but maintained a reserved public presence, rarely attending reunions, retrospectives, or industry functions that might draw attention back to his past successes. When Heavy D passed away in 2011, John Henton's absence from the funeral was consistent with this approach to life. While his connection to Heavy D and the Living Single cast was meaningful, John had long chosen to navigate life and career on his own terms. His absence was not a sign of disrespect or diminished affection. Rather, it reflected a deliberate choice to maintain personal boundaries and manage grief privately. For John, attending public events tied to past experiences could have been emotionally taxing, especially given the intense media attention that often accompanies such gatherings. His life after the show demonstrates a conscious effort to balance career, personal recovery, and emotional health. John Henton's story underscores the complex realities faced by performers who navigate fame, unexpected life challenges, and the need for privacy. While fans often assume that absence from memorials or public ceremonies indicates detachment, John's case illustrates that respect and remembrance can be experienced and expressed privately, away from cameras, press, and public scrutiny. His decision to live quietly after his accident, focusing on personal healing and controlled professional engagements, mirrors the choices of several living single cast members, all of whom approached Heavy D's passing in ways aligned with their life circumstances and personal boundaries. Understanding John's journey offers insight into why he, like Kim Fields, Kim Cole, Eric Alexander, and Terrence Carson, might not have been publicly present at Heavy D's funeral. It highlights the intersection of career pressures, personal trials, and emotional coping, showing that public absence does not equate to lack of care or admiration. Instead, it demonstrates a respect for personal space, privacy, and a thoughtful way of honoring someone influential in one's life without the need for public display. John's story, intertwined with the broader experiences of his castmates, provides a nuanced perspective on the decisions behind the living single cast's absence, illustrating how grief, history, and personal circumstances shape responses to loss in the world of entertainment. The absence of most living single cast members at Heavy D's funeral has been a subject of curiosity and speculation for years, but the reasons are multifaceted and deeply personal. Each actor's journey after the show shaped how they navigated both grief and public appearances, revealing that absence does not equal indifference. For Terrence Carson, who portrayed Kyle Barker, the departure from the series was fraught with tension over creative direction and representation, leaving scars that extended beyond professional concerns. By the time Heavy D passed, Carson had already distanced himself from Hollywood and sought a quieter life focused on personal projects, music, and theater. His absence from the funeral reflected both the private nature of his grieving process and the complicated history he carried from his time on the show. Similarly, Kim Fields had intentionally stepped away from Hollywood and the living single circle by the final seasons, navigating personal challenges, such as a divorce, and launching her own production company. Her focus on self-preservation and personal growth, rather than public visibility, explains why she did not attend the funeral despite her affection and respect for Heavy D. Kim Cole, who played the effervescent Sinclair, had also been navigating post-show challenges. She faced professional uncertainty, financial struggles, and emotional lows that required her to rebuild her identity outside the television spotlight. By 2011, Cole had embraced a private, purposeful life centered on self-love, motivational work, and mentorship, making a public attendance at Heavy D's funeral less aligned with her chosen approach to life. Erica Alexander, known for her role as Maxine Shaw, exemplified another aspect of this dynamic. Throughout her career, she emphasized authenticity, representation, and personal boundaries, often opting to address issues on her terms. While she publicly celebrated Heavy D's influence in interviews and on projects like the Reliving Single podcast, her private grieving process kept her away from public events. John Henton, who played Overton Wakefield Jones, had endured a life-altering car accident and had carefully cultivated a low-profile life in the years following the show. Like his co-stars, his absence from the funeral reflected a combination of personal choice, prioritizing privacy, and managing grief without the pressure of public scrutiny. Taken together, these stories illustrate a common theme. The living single cast members approached Heavy D's passing in ways that were consistent with their post-show lives, personal growth, and coping mechanisms. They chose reflection over display, private mourning over public spectacle, and personal healing over social expectation. Heavy D's legacy, far from being diminished by their absence, remained intact in their hearts, memories, and public acknowledgement through interviews and media retrospectives.